My next guest has been in the music industry for 37 plus years. Jeri Goldstein began as a booking agent and artist manager. She did that for about 20 plus years. Then she wrote her book, How to Be Your Own Booking Agent. Currently, Jeri consults with artists to develop their careers and create strategies for success. You can check her out on performingbiz.com. I have Jeri here now. How are you?
Hi, Sherry. How are you?
I am well. It's nice to have you here with us.
Well, this is great. Fabulous. I love your audience, and I love what you're doing for your audience.
Thank you so much. Dave from the Indie Bible gave you like glowing reviews.
Oh, and I'll give it right back to him.
He's awesome, isn't he?
He is fabulous, and what he's done is fabulous.
Well, and he says the same thing about you. You are the go-to person to know everything about managing bands, booking shows, just making it in this industry.
Fabulous. Thank him and thank you.
All right. So I thought today, since you are this walking wealth of information, that we could touch on the 3 things you think are vital for any band to know for success in the business.
Okay. I love it. Okay. So what I would say as being the top 3 things, I'm going to go number 1, people have to start from where they are currently. You know, it's lovely to have a vision for yourself as being the next big thing in the music industry, but you have to start somewhere. And so I always suggest to people to assess where you are now. And that takes into consideration, so if you're just starting, maybe you're not playing any gigs, or maybe you're doing open mics, maybe you're doing 1 gig at 50 seats or a house concert for 6 people. Start with a general assessment. What is going on in your career right now? The next part of that is, who do you think your audience is going to be or should be, or who do you know your audience is? Because in order to play the right venue, you have to know who your audience is. If you're playing to, say, 15 to 25-year-olds, they're going to go to a specific kind of venue. If you're playing to 55-year-olds, they're going to go to a different kind of venue. So understanding who exactly is your audience and the kinds of venues that those audience members will go to is going to eliminate you making a lot of unnecessary phone calls, so that you can zoom in on exactly the right venues for your audience. And I think part 3 of that first assessment is, where are you playing right now? Are you playing a 50-seat venue? Are you playing a 150-seat venue? Are you playing a 500-seat venue? Or they're, going up. Once you know that, you can then determine what's next in your next step to climb to your next level. You can't go from playing a 50-seat venue to playing a 5,000-seat venue. It often doesn't work. So that assessment is just the best place that any band must start, so you know how to move forward. Do you want me to go on to number 2, or did you want to comment?
The thing that comes to mind is, do you have any, I know like with the Indie Bible venue guide, he's got it color-coded so that, say you're a metal band.
Right.
You can look at that guide and you can see which venues play metal. For instance, if it's a jazz bar, don't bother. But it's not always that easy, and not everybody, has that particular tool. Are there any resources that you can, ideas about that? Because I guess what I'm thinking is, in the beginning, a band might have to spend a lot of time on the phone, Googling, and then getting on the phone and asking those questions to sort of make a database for themselves.
Okay, let me go to, I'm going to cover that in step 3, if I can.
Okay.
If I can. Because I'm going to talk directly to that specific thing in terms of how to start and move and expand your base.
Okay.
But that's number 3, because it's one of the most important ones. Okay, so number 2 is to always be working in a 2-year planning time frame. Now, most people don't think about this, and what I've seen is that when you work in a 2-year planning time frame, you're able to take into consideration what is necessary for like the immediate, this week, the next 6 months, but you're also able to take into consideration things you'd like to do in the future, but not the distant future. Like if you want to play a festival, let's say it's September. Well, if you want to play a festival, you've missed this summer's festival, but if you're working on a 2-year time frame, you're already thinking about next summer, because the people who are booking festivals, as I remember hearing Dave mention to you, the day the festival is over, the festival director, the artistic director, is already thinking about who they want to have next year. So if you're on this 2-year time frame and you have pre-selected, like you live in on the East Coast, and you're you're dealing with indie rock bands. Well, let's find a festival that might happen on the East Coast, and that festival is already over. It happened in July. Well, if you're thinking 2 years ahead, you can put that festival on your 2-year calendar for next summer and think about how are you going to get to be either considered for that year or get to play around that festival so that the community and the artistic director begin to discover you. And when you're working on that 2-year time frame, you're looking ahead. You're able to take advantage of showcases or submissions to conferences and submissions to apply for a showcase at conferences that you know is going to happen that year. You can put it on your calendar. So it gives you a momentum driver. It helps you to focus your touring, focus your time frame where you might be at a particular time in the year, and it gives you that forward movement where so many bands will often say, I don't know what to do next, or they're working helter-skelter and they're zipping around here. They live in on the East Coast and they're thinking, oh, I better go to California or something like that. And I think that having that 2-year time frame allows you to be specific about what your goals are, and it allows you to really look forward to surrounding specific anchor dates with, say, house concerts or smaller venues, or attempting to break into new markets because you know you're going to be in the area because you've said, I want to go to that showcase, I want to go to that conference, I want to go to that festival, or I want to just get into that market. And I think that when bands that work on that 2-year time frame and then they plan every year for the next 2 years, helps them to create momentum in their career and keep stepping up to the next level in a very logical, step-by-step method.
That is the first time I have ever heard anyone say that, and it makes more sense to me than the simplicity of it is brilliant. But yeah, that makes so much sense. You want to play South by Southwest.
Exactly.
That's a huge event.
Perfect
so that
example.
would make perfect sense. Right. Start playing the area, getting down there, networking with the right people.
Exactly.
Make an impression. Right. And the goal is in 2 years, we'll be there.
That's right. And when you have that as one of those, monumental goals, you're working all the time towards being able to make a good impression, make that work for you, because you know what you're heading for. And you can't possibly say, in February, oh, I think I'm going to go to South by Southwest in, 3 weeks, because that conference happens in March, and you're not ready for it. You're not prepared to make a good showing of it. And there's so many things that you could be doing in preparation for a year in advance, you know, and so having that 2-year calendar allows you to do that with any number of things that you want to have done. Even let's say your cousin's getting married in some part of the country, and you know you're going to go to the wedding. Well, what about seeing whether or not you can make a little mini tour of that, be at the wedding, but, you know, have the band come along, maybe even play at the wedding, and use that as a momentum driver to open up that market.
That is genius. Genius. All right, step 3.
Okay, now going back to what you had said before of how do you select the places where you want to play, or how do you know how to book the proper venues? Well, this ties in with so many bands are looking to opening markets that they don't necessarily belong in yet. So I'm going to call this developing or creating a hometown base of support. Now, let's say, and I want to bring this up in the context of when you look at successful bands and going throughout history, if you really study what bands have made an impact on the world market, you'll notice that they, for the most part, began by creating a home base of support. Now, I'm going to reference this by saying that I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I live in the hometown of the Dave Matthews Band. Even though, yes, he was from South Africa, but Charlottesville, Virginia is where the Dave Matthews Band was born. And their strategy was to create a very loyal hometown base of support and then expand outward. So what they did was become a band that played every Tuesday night at one particular venue. Then they would play the surrounding area, going like out 50 miles at a time, expanding out to then North Carolina, expanding out to then, you know, D.C. and Pennsylvania and Maryland and South Carolina, and all the time creating a regional reputation until the point became that the regional reputation brought them to the attention of major labels. So most people want to say, oh, we should be playing in Boston, and they live in southern Florida. Well, that costs money. That costs you a lot of time, energy, and resources to go up to a place that nobody knows you. So when you develop your hometown base of support, you're building relationships with local media. You're building relationships with a local fan base so that when you move 20 miles down the road to the next town, your fans and friends from your hometown have the ability to follow you there. They have the ability to call their friends and neighbors and relatives and say, hey, I'm going to see this band. And so now instead of having 20 friends, you have 40 friends because they've all invited their friends. Very similar to what happens in creating a viral effect, that you now have that ability, you know, with Facebook and Twitter and all of the social medias. So if you create that hometown base of support, you're saving money on touring expenses, you're finding and establishing a lot of venues and other types of performance opportunities that are not necessarily your normal regular club or performance center, but you know, if you're the go-to band in town to do the local bandstand thing that you're playing in front of the entire town because they all come out on Friday nights to see what's happening at the local bandstand, you have gained a huge reputation, and that is going to expand and follow and create a very solid fan base.